Well, a decision has finally been made in regards to the infamous will they or won't they go with Surrey Police. This morning, the Supreme Court ruled against Surrey's bid to halt the transition from the RCMP to a municipal force. Joining me now to help break it all down is our Soapbox Social panel. Kyla Lee is a Vancouver criminal lawyer for Acumen Law Corporation. Hello.
Hello.
And Mo Amir is the host of the podcast. This is Vancouver. Hello.
Hi, Belle. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I know that this Surrey is not your favorite
Oh, this is my
right?
favorite thing to talk about. Yeah, I'm so excited. Can you see the excitement in my face?
Might be
Can you hear it in my voice?
It's your favorite day because maybe this is the last time you'll ever have to talk about it.
I'm not holding my breath
but
on that.
I'm going to get you to, to just give you a heads up because I'm going to let you listen to Brenda Locke before we get into it. She's the Surrey mayor and she spoke about the decision just a few minutes ago.
Of course, we respect the decision of the court. There's no questioning that. Moving forward, there are lots of decisions to make, and I can only say we only just received the decision hours ago. There's a lot for us to fully understand and look at, but certainly it still comes back to the cost and the tax burden to our residents. It's extraordinary. And we are very, very concerned, and we will continue to be very concerned about that. And so moving forward, that will be what we will be putting forward to Council, and Council will be making those decisions together.
So, Kyla, what do you make of this Supreme Court move?
I mean, it's not entirely surprising. Anytime there's a judicial review, essentially the court is looking for evidence that the original decision-making was unreasonable. And that's a really high bar to meet because you essentially have to prove that it's outside of a range of possible outcomes that are defensible. And, you can get it wrong as long as you still arrive at that conclusion in the same way and in a defensible fashion. So they had a high bar to meet and a high burden to prove. And obviously the court didn't think that they did it. It is interesting that she says, they're going to review the decision. Yeah. To me, those are the words of we're considering an appeal. We're going to get legal advice on that.
They are. But yeah, it's just kind of laughing because it was a 27-page decision. I mean, in the world of decisions, it's pretty short decision.
It is a short decision. And, interestingly, when you are appealing a decision of a judge sitting on judicial review, essentially the Court of Appeal kind of does a brand new hearing. They'll consider all the same evidence, but it's kind of like another kick at the can at the appellate level on this type of thing where it isn't in other types of appeals. So they may see more value in doing it because there is, another effort to persuade them that the original decision was unreasonable.
Okay, now it's your turn, Mo. How much impact do you think this decision could have on the provincial election?
Oh, on the provincial election, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess we'll see. I know certainly there is a crowd in Surrey that really wants to keep the RCMP. And so if they feel like the province has bullied the municipality into this, maybe, but I just don't see that this decision itself is going to sway people one way or the other. I think for the most part, people in Surrey just want to move on with this. It's been going on for 19 months. We've been talking about this for 19 months. And so imagine being a resident of Surrey where, you are bearing the costs of a dual police force. You're bearing the legal costs of this, all unnecessary if they end up moving with Surrey anyways. There's the time and energy that's pulled away from the municipality itself. There's the time and energy that's pulled away from policing, and it is ultimately souring the relationship with the province. And Surrey being such an important part of British Columbia, just based on its size and the number of people involved, or the people that live there, I should say, I do think that most people in Surrey just want to move on with this. And so we'll see if it goes to an appeal. But for my sake, just selfishly, I'm sick of talking about this. So I hope that that they don't appeal.
Yeah. And I mean, how much attention was taken away from other things over these last 19 months and maybe even longer, and the money and the energy that was put into it?
Oh, I mean, the money and the energy is extraordinary. We just heard Brenda Locke talking about the fact that it's expensive to do the transition, but after several weeks of court time that you're paying lawyers to prepare, and the cost just to the state of functioning a court system for that long for that hearing, at the end of the day, that's costing probably in excess of $1 million just for that. Never mind all the behind the scenes stuff. It's a huge distraction from important issues, and it would be nice to see Surrey get to work on other things and just let this one go.
But do we believe that's the case? Do you think it's over?
Have you ever been in an argument with someone who has their heels dug in so deep and they've invested so much that they just can't get over their own ego to admit that they're wrong or concede any ground? I hope that we're not in that situation where she's just going to exhaust every option, including an appeal. Again, I think most people, certainly in the province, but I think also in Surrey, feel that same way. So is it over? I hope so. But honestly, just based on how this is all unraveled and continues to progress, I don't think so.
Okay, they can do whatever. We're going to move on. Earlier this month, the City of Delta voted to remove their mayor, George Harvey, as chair of the Metro Vancouver Board of Directors. What do you make of that?
This is a very strange move. I think it's very interesting that they've been quite sort of tight-lipped about why it is that they're doing this, just loss of confidence without anything else. But if you look at some of the other things that are going on in Delta, including their, former manager of economic development launching a lawsuit against the mayor's office and the city for wrongful termination and defamation, you kind of get the sense that there's something sort of seemingly toxic or allegedly toxic going on behind the scenes in Delta City Council that is leading to these decisions that are being made, and it's going to have a big impact on the Lower Mainland as a whole.
Is it a big deal? And if so, how big?
I think it's a big deal. I mean, certainly I think the secrecy and the reasoning behind it makes it a big deal because everyone is wondering. And you can only assume that there's some level of dysfunction. It sounded like Mayor Harvey was somewhat blindsided by this. And again, a lot of the rationale doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, they've pulled him from the board chair for Metro Vancouver, but yet they're still allowing him to go on a trip as the board chair to Amsterdam. Like, I can't understand the reasoning. And so it does feel very political. We can put it that way.
Yeah, all of that is very strange because today we're hearing a lot about the Amsterdam trip. And Mayor Harvey, I guess he requested for a transition period. You're throwing me out, but let me have a transition period. And was it Councillor Dylan Kruger is heard asking him for the opportunity to go to Amsterdam? Is like that why you want the transition? And Mayor Harvey agreed. So what do you make of that?
Well, I think to me, that makes a lot of sense. If to have that transition period, there's already been preparation work that's been done for this trip. Meetings have been set up and tickets for things have been purchased, and there's going to be a sunk cost if he doesn't go. So you may as well follow through and continue the work that has been done to put this into place rather than throwing somebody new who's unprepared, who hasn't been doing all of the behind-the-scenes relationship building, and then having them show up and go like, hey, teach us how to do things the way you do them. I don't know who you are.
But is it, is it still going to be useful if he's not the chair anymore?
That's my question, especially when Delta Council is saying that, they've lost confidence that he's representing the interests of Surrey, and yet they still want him to go on this trip. Other commentators have brought up the fact that he had a 17 grand round trip flight to Brisbane. He took a trip to Singapore. And so not even just this trip, I just wonder how useful those trips have been to the city of Delta and to Metro Vancouver in total. I mean, apparently he's going to Amsterdam to talk to some engineers about diking or whatever, and that makes sense for Delta. But ultimately, is Mayor Harvey an engineer? Is he the right person to go for that? Like, I just don't see it. And so why they still allow him to go on this trip, or I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And hopefully we learn a little more to actually be able to comment on what's going on. We're just speculating for the most part.
All right. Thanks for coming in.